Hello, everybody out there in Twitch land. My name is Carlos A.S. Lising, and welcome to caslTawk, where we talk about everything that goes to the world of Greyhawk. The man over here on the right side of the screen probably needs no introduction to any of you, but this is Luke Gygax. Luke, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to help us out.
It's my pleasure to be on, Carlos. Thank you.
Oh, I really appreciate it, man. Um, Luke has been the guy that I've wanted most on the show since we started, and I couldn't tell you all how pleased I am that he's made it with us. Luke, could you tell us the crowd a little bit about what you're doing right now, project-wise?
Oh, sure. I think the main thing on the top of my list these days is GaryCon. GaryCon 12 is coming up March 26th to 29th in Lake Geneva, and that's a memorial convention in honor of my father. And it has also developed into just a wonderful way to recognize all the founders of our hobby throughout the various, obviously from OD&D all the way up, and now it includes a lot of brand new gamers and fifth edition folks, and your Pathfinders and your Hackmasters, and kind of everybody is there, just having a good time celebrating. We're going to break the 3,000 mark this year from
That's amazing.
all indications, which is just for Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, a town of maybe 7,000 at the most. That's crazy.
Yeah,
So
that
pretty
is
cool.
it's. And for those of you out there who haven't had a chance yet to go to GaryCon, after my sabbatical from Dungeons and Dragons, GaryCon was the first show I actually attended, and I can't tell you how amazing a show Luke and the rest of the crew puts on. Those guys. Thanks for coming, Lord Son, but we appreciate it. Um,
Yeah.
yes, the GaryCon is just such an amazing show, and Luke and his crew do so much hard work on that show, and it really shines through in the product. Um, Luke, what else are you working on right now?
We're kind of putting the finishing touches on this Lost City of Gaxmore for fifth edition. That Kickstarter closed. Gosh, I think it was August timeframe that we did that. The dates all run together,
Hmm.
and so that was fantastic. What a wonderful outpouring! And I just wrote and sent in my encounter a few weeks ago for that, which I talked to you a little bit before
Yeah.
we got on. But I
Hmm.
wanted to let the cat out of the bag in case people are going to be playing. Gaxmore was a lot of fun. And then I'm going to do some writing for the Starship Warden. That's an active Kickstarter right now with a good friend James Ward and Chris Clark, who worked with my dad. And of course, Troll Lords are publishing that. Steve Chenault, who also worked with my dad, all good friends. So I'm going to add a little mini adventure, a little setting in there for that. And then there's a bunch of other stuff cooking, but nothing that I'm really ready to announce. I mean, there's an idea I'm kicking around for maybe to adapt a setting that I have to pitch it as an animated series or something like that. But that's a long shot. We'll see. But there's some neat ideas, and gosh, the world has changed so much since we started playing Greyhawk in the 70s and 80s that now to be able to talk about getting a fantasy TV show onto the air is not as far fetched as it would have been back then.
Right,
People would have laughed
absolutely.
at you.
Yeah, I remember as a kid always thinking to myself that was, it wouldn't it be cool if? Well, if is
Yeah,
now. If is happening.
it is.
And
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for telling us all about that, Luke. Because any of you guys who out there want to support the old school, in particular, Luke and the last name should tell you everything you need to know about the quality that's going to go into the product. So be sure you guys look out for Gaxmore. Be sure you do the Starship Warden Kickstarter. By all means, make sure you go to GaryCon. I mean, like I said, that's where we play the games. It's the mecca of Dungeons and Dragons. The game was created there. Luke, you were there pretty much from the very beginning. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your formative experiences in the world of Greyhawk? I mean, how were you introduced to it?
Well, I think I'm the first person who can say they grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons. I believe I was 4 years old the first time I was at the table playing D&D. Now, of course, I was four, so my grasp on it was not as thorough as as an adult player or a young adult player. But I was playing a Man at Arms where the dining room table at 330 Center Street, which you can go to and tour
Right.
these days. And if you're at GaryCon, a lot of times we'll run a game there. Paul Stormberg is active there. another Greyhawk historian, and I was playing a man-at-arms for, I believe my brother was probably there, perhaps Rob Coons, maybe Jim, I don't know if Jim Ward was there or not. It was like I said, it was a long time ago. But I was playing a character named Otis, and I was actually a ranger who was working for the druid there to keep an eye on the group. So that was my first memory in a village of Hamlet and what would become, T1. And I played Otis through the Giant series, G1, 2, 3, and then into the Descent Against the Drought and the Depths of the Earth and the Kuatoa and all that. So I played him all the way to a Ranger Lord,
Wow.
which was not easy. That was not his 10th level. Made it to 10th level. And that was maybe 8 or 9, something like that. So it was like 5 years of play. So I went through all those iconic play tests. And that was just my home group. So I wasn't thinking about this as, I was just playing with my dad and
Right.
friends and having a good time. But how we played it helped shape some of those encounters and work out the bugs. And
Well, you're actually playtester number one in a lot of ways. I mean, you're one of the people that really that was kind of helping your father form the game into what it would be made eventually. I think back to stuff like WG4 and S4, Forgotten Temple of Thurisdan and Lost Caverns of Sokanth, but we'll come back around to that in just a second. I want to know what your first impressions of his world was when you were a kid. What were the things that you noticed about Greyhawk, or that your first impressions?
So this was D&D to me. I didn't know another setting. So this was his homebrew, and it also happened to be what was presented to the world. Pretty much the way you're going to read some of those adventures is the way he ran it. I wrote the forward for, was it Keep on the Borderlands B2?
Yeah.
I wrote one of the many forwards that was in there, and I went back and reread B2 in order to write that forward, and it was weird. It was like I was sitting with my dad, and he was reading. When I was reading it, I heard it in his voice, because that was his style.
Right.
That's exactly how he did stuff. And things have evolved a lot in the way we play the game, I think. Even if you're an old school gamer, you may do things differently. He certainly, it was about a facet of the game in Greyhawk was about puzzle solving in the World of Greyhawk. Things weren't necessarily handed to you. You had to do some thinking. You had to map, because part of that was the puzzle.
Right.
Is to figure out what was the layout of this place? Was there some areas you hadn't explored, where there could be some dead space that you would look and search and find a hidden room, a way down, things like that. So it was very much that way. It was a challenge. You were a hero and you were adventuring. So for me, and I read someone wrote an essay in Dragon Online or Dungeon Online or something like that. And I think Mike Merles had me read it, or someone else, maybe it was one of the other guys at Wizards had me read it and offer my opinion. I was like, no, this guy's got it completely wrong. Greyhawk isn't a place of evil. It isn't a place where, the bad guys are winning. Sure, a lot of what you're reading in your intros are darkness is rising. That's the hero's call to arms. That is the call for good people to stand up and fight. It gives you a way, as the good hero, to be set up for success. Hey, you get to go fight all these bad guys and win and save the world, right?
Right.
That's what you're doing. I played an evil character once, and it was really tough. You didn't like evil characters because evil characters would try to take you out, and good characters would try to take you out.
Right.
I didn't do very well playing evil anyway. I mostly stuck to the good characters. But the world was hard. Greyhawk was hard. You had to constantly, you would take away your resources, just like a Conan book.
Right.
Hey, you just did this great successful thing. Well, if you are nice and rich and don't need to adventure, why adventure, right? You're comfortable. So you'd find a way to take that gold from you in the way of spell research, training, building a stronghold and maintaining it. All those are drains on your finances, so it gives you a reason to go adventure.
If you use the training rules in 1E, my players are, as they're finding out in the live broadcast of our game that we do, they're finding out the training costs are a big deal.
and just finding somebody to train you.
Right.
When you hit a certain point, you've got to find someone high enough level to be able to train you. And with Melf, I had to eventually go to like Big B and Morton Cannon. Those were a couple of guys that could train me.
Wow.
More easier, had the resources and were willing to do so. And then they would use that as okay, sure, I'll train you. I can get you access to these spells, but here's what I need done.
Right.
So it was a way to land an adventure hook, right?
Right. Out here in the crowd, we've got some comments here I got to run by you. Grendelwolf's Lair, my good friend Gitano, says, wait, so if Luke is playtester number 1, then it's all his fault for what our characters suffered. And my friend Dan down in Florida mentions that this month is the 40th anniversary of B2. I wasn't aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that either. Okay, so yeah, I was about 9 years old when that came out.
Right. Also, you mentioned somebody else mentioned that you were too young to play in a '72 game when Arneson first showed Gary Blackmore, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was 72 or 73. It might have been 72.
Okay.
That's about right. Yeah, I was born in 1970.
Me too.
So pretty young, guys. I've been very young. I've been chewing on dice maybe.
That's awesome. Now, first, I just can't help but imagine what it was like growing up in that household. I got to believe that kind of greased the skids for your whole appreciation of fantasy and the fantastic, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, again, for me, that's my normal. So when I look at the world, I will talk to people, and it's great because I know a lot of gamers, but I will couch things in game terms. Like that guy has a low charisma, negative, negative modifier on his reaction adjustments, or just things like that, or oh he blew that roll, or what. And I look at alignments and even historical context. I'll really use my lens of gaming to see the world, and I do that all the time. Sometimes I'll use the military. I've been in the military a long time as well, so that's another lens I can look. But that's how I see the world, which is neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I mean, I think all of us gamers have a tendency to do that, but I would imagine that would be so central to who you are and who you've become that you couldn't even avoid it if you wanted to. As far as being
the
a
advantage is I could talk
playtester,
to my brother and my dad and others that in that same using that same lens.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And going back to the whole playtester thing, what do you remember exact? Do you remember very vividly playtesting anything, and what kind of contributions did you make actually to the material that we know now?
Sure. So I probably made most of my contributions more so as a character named Melf. Otis, I think I was bothering my dad to go on a solo or to go during the week. I was like, Dad, let's play D&D, let's play D&D. And my sister Heidi and I ended up going on adventures. He's like, okay, sure. So we sat in his den and he took us into, across the great swamp and, found this abandoned crypt. And there was, rumors of great treasure, but there was an evil creature, undead creature living there. Of course, that was the Tomb of Horrors. So I went to the Tomb of Horrors. I hit the trap or the tunnel. I didn't do it correctly, where I got teleported back to the front, but all of my stuff got teleported to the end.
No.
Yeah. And then, of course, I kept going, but I then crawled through and ended up in the 10 by 10 room with the levers.
Oh no!
Spoiler alert if you don't know. Yeah, if you don't know. And then I moved the levers all up, I believe, which drops the floor out from beneath.
Yep.
I believe that's what happens. And it's a 100-foot pit, but I had 107 or 108 hit points, something like that. So I survived the fall, but there was no way out. No gear, no magic. So
Brutal.
That was an ignoble end to my poor ranger.
That's...
But then I rolled up Melf after that.
Mm-hmm.
And went adventuring in Castle Greyhawk. The classic dungeon was great. So I was fantastic. I did a little bit there. And when I hit, so an earlier spell I developed is I noticed in Castle Greyhawk, there tended to be, and I think we all use this as a classic thing. You have some crunchies up front, some orcs, whatever it may be, some bandits, and then an evil sorcerer or a cleric or whatever it may be in the back, throwing spells and controlling them. So I did a fair amount of solo adventuring.
Right.
And Melf was a fighter magic user, and man, it was rough getting hit by 5, 6, orcs or whatever it is, cutting your way through them, and then getting to the spellcaster, right?
Right.
So I was thinking, well, wait a second, couldn't I do something? I know that your spell's ruined if you take damage, so how can I do that? And I came up with Melf's Acid Arrow.
Right.
I talked that through with my dad, and I had to go take time out of gaming, write up the spell, spend money on research, do all those things, and then draft up a spell, which he kind of revised and said, no, it's not first level, it's second level. Here's what it is. But that then made it into the official D&D as Melf's Acid Arrow. And a similar thing when I was adventuring also in Castle Greyhawk. It's a handy lesson, I think many of us have learned, the difference between area and volume. So I made 5th level, I had Fireball, I paid to get the spell from whoever had taught me. I made the check. Yes, I could learn it. I knew Fireball. I was like, yes. And there was a room, I think, with an ogre, maybe with 2 ogres or something. Oh, but it was 30 by 30. And I was like, all right, so it's 30 by 30. He's like, yeah, it's about 30 by 30. You can't tell exactly. I was like, all right, great. Spell 30 by 30, or 30 foot, diameter. Like, great. So I drop it. Where do you want to drop it? Right in the center. Okay, perfect. Well, the ceiling was 10 feet or 15 feet or whatever it was. So fire jetted out, and had to make my saving throw, take the damage.
I think everybody that's ever played a magic user has had that same experience.
Yeah, no eyebrows, right? Yeah,
exactly. By the way, everyone, a shameless product placement right now for Gary Con.
Yes, you have great taste. So I can do.
My cupboard has about 16 of these. I want you to know.
All right, yeah, that's great.
It's just a matter of I chose green today for Mel's, but I'll explain why here a little bit later.
Yeah.
For everybody out there, I just remember something else that's probably a shared experience that I remember as a kid. I would read through all the books, like when I got Unearthed Arcana, or I would get a module, and I would see your name there. I'd say Luke Gygax. I thought to myself, oh wow, man, he must have a brother or something, because at 8, 9 years old, everybody's an adult to you. I had no idea that you're my age peer.
Yeah.
So that was.
Yeah, I would sit and talk to my dad about stuff. I'd come home from school. He'd be typing on his typewriter. I'd go into his den, and I'd pick up the pages that he had recently done, or I'd pick up my monster manual, or whatever it was, and I'd flip through and I'd read and I'd ask him questions, and I'd just see what was going on. And then, of course, just naturally, we would bounce ideas off each other and tell me about something. I'd say, oh, what about this? Or I didn't realize I was doing creative work. I was just rapping with my dad.
Sure.
About things, and I'm sure some of my ideas were probably way out there and preposterous, and maybe some had a few were good ideas that helped him out to make it somewhere. And that whole fireball thing, that's how I came up with Melf's Minute Meteors, is I wanted little fireballs that wouldn't backblast and kill me. So that's how we did the same process when we came up with the Melf's Minute Meteors. We'd make jokes and do stuff, and that's how some of those other spells came out, like Tasha's was it Hideous Irresistible Laughter, whatever that was. Those all came about through rap sessions, like either with my sisters or me and that sort of thing. I'm sure you had Alan Growy on, so you're very familiar with all the anagrams and all the names that are in Greyhawk and that were in there.
That was half the fun when I was a kid, is figuring all that stuff out. But even now I find out that I don't really understand the whole of it, because as a kid, thanks Keegan, and thank you Iron Puppy God for following me. I really appreciate it. I remember as a kid seeing Odaluke's name, for example, and I thought it was a joint character that you and Errol Otis must have played together.
Oh no! So I think that was just my dad making. You need to come up with names. So I was playing Otis, so he's like, Luke plays Otis. Oh, Odaluke. I think that's how that came about. One that I was gonna say one that just struck me after all this time is I was saying Kyodom's Ointment.
Oh.
Kyoto, and it is Kyodom's, right? But all that is Tom Keo.
Right.
That's one of my dad's best friends, Tom Keo. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? I've read it for all these years, and it never occurred to me that's just Tom Keo.
I always imagined that I saw the name in there, and actually I knew that one, and Keo Land, the kingdom, I thought was about him.
Well, I knew Keo Land, right? Yeah, I knew that one, but Kyotom it didn't occur to me, and I was like, just wanted to slap myself for missing that one for all these years. But one that I don't know that a lot of people have is the Pomarge. I don't know if
no.
Okay, so my mom's name is Mary Jo Powell. So that's the Pomage.
Got it.
And yeah, and it's been overrun by humanoids, as I recall, in Greyhawk right now.
Right.
So yeah, so it's a place you want to stay away from, as you will. So you're probably squabbling as that kind.
Thanks for joining, Lord Forth. We really appreciate it. I'm talking here with Luke Gygax about his initial experiences with World of Greyhawk and some of the things that projects he's working on and things like that. I got to mention, since we're talking about all this stuff right now, that I think you share with me my two favorite modules of all time. My favorite adventures of all time are Forgotten Temple of Thurisdan and Lost Caverns of Sokanth. And I think there's a different pronunciation for every single person I've ever met with either of those. But so forgive me if I butcher your fathers on that too much. But you were a playtester in both of those, were you not, Luke?
Yeah, that was fantastic. Are you kidding me? Those that's why they're my favorite, is because I had such a blast playing that. I played Lost Caverns of Sajkanth. I played probably half of it solo and half of it with a group of guys, including Sonny Savage, or Jerry Savage from Savage Creations.
Mm-hmm.
He played in that, and he's a guy. He's the reason why I joined the military. He was a few years older than me. And he joined the army, and then he came back from basic training. I was like, oh wow, it sounds really cool. And he went out, got in the reserves when I was in college, and I ended up talking to him and joining the army. So that's kind of neat. But so I still see Jerry, and he was Urab the Savage. And then there was a couple of Rob Kuntz's distant cousins that played with us, and a few other folks. Francois Marcel Freudeval played through there for a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Jim Ward ever joined us, but there was lots of people there. But I solo played a lot of that as Melf, and went probably from 5th level up to, I think I was 5-5 going in, and I came out like 9-11 or 8-11, one of the two, yeah. And I know by the end, I needed to get the manual of bodily health or whatever it is, right. And then also the tome of intelligence in order to level up. I need both of those because I was maxed out by my stats.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, those are fantastic, and man, just discovering the new creatures like the bee here and the Gorgamira, and
I vividly remember being 12 years old, opening up that book. I was sitting on my chest in my living room at that point in time. It was the middle of winter. I opened that thing up, and I saw that it was 2 books in there, and I was so blown away by the production of Sajkanth. I was just like, this is my little 12-year-old mind was totally blown. Luke, I've got a couple questions from the audience, actually, that they'd like to run by you before we continue. One of them is from my good friend Dan, who he would like to know is it true that ear seekers were actually created in order to deter excessive listening at doors?
Yes, that's 100% true.
That's crazy. I don't think I've ever used them, but I will now.
When people were fooling around too long and wanted to get the adventure going, so there were things like that.
Another one is someone asked me. Not A2. A2 being Secret of the Slaver's Stockade. Easy for me to say. No, Marquesa is my favorite villain in D&D history, but that's not my favorite module. I do love that one, though. And someone else asked, I suppose Luke has played the first run of most D&D 1E modules. Is that true?
Only if my dad wrote them.
Okay, cool. By the way, somebody else mentioned our military service. Luke, you're in the Army, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I was Air Force, for those of you guys out there. Luke, and I believe you were a Desert Storm guy, right, as well?
Yeah, I was in Desert Storm 19. Yeah, I just turned 20.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, as far as your S4 and WG4 experience goes,
yes,
you handled the S4 with Jerry Savage and the rest of those guys, but was WG4 a solo?
Actually, that one. So for Melf, it took Melf, I don't know, like a year to adventure through Sajkanth or longer, simply because I didn't have a cleric with me. So anytime I took damage, I would have to rest.
Right.
Rest. So there was some gnomes that were nearby there, so I would go hang out with the gnomes, and that way I could get 2 hit points a day back instead of 1 when I was camping, right? So it was quicker. So the gnomes told me about the Lost Templar, kind of gave me the intro there. Hey, there's some humanoids in this, blah, 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 blah. And so the whole group of us, including Jerry Savage and other folks, we went and, we stormed the front gate. There was a Furbolg or something that were there. So I can't remember exactly what was there. But there was I remember I leaped over the wall. Took the boulders coming in, leaped over the wall, got in some hand to hand, and that was great. Oh, what a great assault! It was dramatic, and but then finding going down and finding the throwables and the cloaks and all that sort of
It
stuff.
is so creepy. The
That was
atmosphere is so creepy.
wasn't it?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. I wish
it made
I
yeah,
could bottle that for some of my adventures. The way he does,
yes.
your father did that, the suspense in just reading through it is so tangible.
Yeah. And if I can suggest and shamelessly plug my YouTube, uh, Luke Gygax, I believe we got the adventure. So there was Founders and Legends. So you can Google search, or you search on YouTube Founders and Legends, Mike Merles,
Right.
or they might have called it Jox Machina because Joe Manganiello was there. But we played a 5th edition game, but Mike Merles ran it, where Mordenkainen gave Archon and Melf and the other players this mission, and it kind of points to possibly Thrisden. And then we played a part 2 where we had to go into some strange plane and recover a magic item at GaryCon last year. And that one should be up on my YouTube as well. And that was another Mike Merle's adventure where Mordenkainen is tasking us again. And it was Joe was playing Archon, I was playing Melf, and then we had 2 other characters there. Matt Mercer was playing one of them, and he's just a really good player. It's just the way he describes stuff. He's really vivid. He really gets you going too. And Mike Merles, really top notch. I mean, top notch. I felt that suspense. I felt those things when I was there.
And if
And
you
those were a
watch the
couple really
videos,
neat
for those of you out
adventures.
there who have seen it before, you can just watch Luke's face as it goes through, and you can tell that, yeah, what he's saying is absolutely 100%. I've watched those videos ad nauseum, so.
Yeah, I mean, it was really neat. That I think the Founders and Legends adventure, that Founders and Legends one that Mike ran, I just had so much fun. It was one of the best games I've had in a decade. I mean, it's in
Wow.
the top couple of games in a decade that I played. It just
That's
really,
fantastic, man.
it was amazing. Yeah, so just getting that excitement again is awesome. But yeah, Thrisden, man, fantastic character. Sajkant, the encounter in the middle, man,
With the vampire?
yes, I was so Big Will's daughter, whatever. I was
Yep.
so pissed at hitting those 7 doors and being teleported randomly around because, like I told you, you had to map. There was no freebies, so it's like, okay, you go to open the door, you're standing in a hallway that looks like this or whatever it was, and I had to figure out. I had to start mapping all over again until I found a room where I knew where I was,
Right.
and then be able to go back to my map. So I had like 7 or 8 different pages of map paper, and
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So that was every time.
mapping that thing is a work in of itself. Now you're as far as this goes, your father didn't hand wave much of these like overland travel things, did he? I mean, he
No,
played the entire overland travel.
for the most part, yeah. I mean, there's occasionally but usually it's like, okay, you walk along, blah blah blah, you pull guard, roll some dice, you at least go through that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Now, as far as so when you're going through these modules at this point, TSR is at its absolute apex. Things are going
Yeah.
great. Your father probably didn't have a whole lot of time, really, did he, to play?
No, he didn't. So this was my way of being able to spend time with my dad. He had to play test it.
Right.
I got to hang out with my dad. So yeah, those are some very fond memories for me, and that's my primary way of spending time with my dad.
Now, you and I both share those 2 modules as favorites. Why do you think
Yeah.
that they resonate with the audience and people that are aficionados of Greyhawk so well?
I think those were probably a time when my dad was able to put he had enough experience under his belt writing some of the other iconic, but not nearly as descriptive and there was a plot line there, but it was really just outline stuff, right?
Right.
The G1, the G series, it's pretty. When you read them now, you're like, wow, this is pretty succinct. It's up to the DM to flesh that out. Well,
Sure.
here he was able to flesh things out, a lot of detail, a lot of amazing ideas. So he had all that experience, and he still had the time to be able to dedicate to that writing.
Jim
Then
Ward
stuff,
told
the
me
needle started
character.
getting a little further, and he didn't have that. He had to spend more time being a manager, business guy,
Right.
That really, that was a waste of his skills.
Now, Jim told me that your father had more energy than anyone he'd ever met before. That he could juggle projects and things like no one ever before. Would you? So that doesn't surprise me too much to hear
Yeah.
what you're saying there. That pretty much coincides with what he's saying. Now, as far as S4 and Thuriston go,
Mm.
uh, just so everybody out there in the crowd knows, shameless plug again. I love S4 so much that I released the module just I believe it was 2 months ago. Went up for our patrons. When Comes the Witching Hour, which is a sequel to S4. And for my patrons out there, this month, every single one of the game materials that you'll receive as rewards has to do with this man sitting here in the chat with me. They're all tied to pieces of his history. And Luke, I'm going to send you those offline just as a thank you for being willing to join us. Hopefully, I didn't butcher your history too much when I with some of these game materials, but I wanted to celebrate you as best I could. Now, as let I think the time has come to talk about Melf himself in particular. Now, we really don't know here, a lot of us in the published materials, too terribly much about him as far as level goes, equipment
Yeah.
goes, statistics go. Uh, what can you tell us?
Well, interestingly enough, I'm having to dust those off because the guys at Codename Entertainment who do a game called Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms, and Forgotten
Oh,
Realms, and everyone wants to hear about that place. But it's the game that they're running. They're great, obviously fans of D&D and all sort of stuff, and we're gonna do a stream with an adventure. It was my idea talking with their president, kind of our idea together. We're going to do the first part of one of their scenarios, right? Their electronic scenarios as a streaming game at YuriCon, and then it'll pop up and you can play those characters in the scenario. And I
oh
said, "Do you
wow!
think we could get Melf in there as a character?" And they're like, "Well, we're not sure." And then they talked about it and they came back. They said yes. Now, sadly, for me on the business side, I don't own Melf because my dad published it, right, in
Right.
Greyhawk. So when he lost all his interest in that, that's right. But I'm still consulting to bring Melf to life there. So I'm
Yeah.
dusting off my old character sheets. And I just had a discussion with him about what Melf was like. So Melf was a relatively young gray elf. He was about 280 years old.
Okay.
He was aged by a banshee by 80 years, so 280, 300.
Mm-hmm.
He was a noble by birth, but he eschewed his title or anything like that because he really believed in fighting evil. He was a classic hero. Now, Melf believed very strongly that he was the right person, that he had the right outlook on things, and that he was the best person to be doing stuff. He didn't have the highest charisma. So I was a young player, so charisma was my dump stat. So he has a 9 charisma, so he's not the most charismatic guy in the world,
Right.
but he's very determined, and he's a fighter magic user, so his other low stat is a 12 wisdom. But those are my 2 lowest stats. I had a 17 strength, 18 dexterity, 17 constitution.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah,
And
that's
some
good.
other stat that was, and then intelligence, wisdom, charisma. Yeah. So I think con was 16 or whatever it was. And then through adventuring, I had to raise up my strength and intelligence in order to level because there's restrictions, right? My dad was very strict with those. So I had to wish my strength up to an 18, and then I diced for percentiles for it, and I got an 1881, I think, or 1883.
Wow.
Correction. I used the body of, the manual health to get up to an 18.
Yeah.
Then I had to use 2 wishes, 10% each, to get me up to a 1903. He's rated 1903 in strength, and I had 18 intelligence. I had to read the tome of intelligence to get up to 19, which allowed me to level. I had an Ioun stone that let me get to 12th level in magic use. So I think I was 11, 12. 11, 12, and then 13 with Ioun stone.
Now there.
Magic items. I had a wand of force that I used.
Oh
Some
yes, nice.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Beads of water elemental summoning,
Mhm.
16 hit die, a +2 longsword around there, a displacer cloak, which got burned up by a Gorgamira when it failed to save.
Oh.
Yeah, that was bad. That was very bad. Boots of Elvenkind, Bacchus Blessed Books, several plus arrows. I had a +4 arrow that I found in the moat house in T1 when I was fighting Lareth.
Uh-huh.
So that was the green arrow. So I was very young as a player. So that was my green arrow that became my moniker, Mel for the Green Arrow.
Yes, that's the allusion I made earlier in tonight's broadcast. I mentioned that I was drinking out of a Green Gary Con mug in honor of Melf, and that's what I meant, is that Melf's symbol was the green arrow.
Yeah.
Now, I heard a rumor that you would, for adventurers that would follow in your footsteps, that you would used to leave green arrows on doors and things like that. True?
Yeah, that's right. I would paint green arrows on the floor to where things were going. I had a limner make up shield coverings with the green arrow and on my shield and the surcoats and stuff. So that was all fun stuff as a kid, to design your own things and do that. But yeah, so Melf was pretty tough. Melf was pretty tough. He, like I said, very determined. He focused on the evoker part, the evocation part of magic. He was all about bringing the damage and closing a distance and fighting. That's what he did well. Not a whole bunch of illusion use or that sort of stuff. Definitely in your face, pound you down kind of player. And again, you kind of had to do that as a when you're solo adventuring a bunch.
Sure.
You often don't have the luxury of taking a lot of utility spells. Certainly detect magic or things like that. Maybe Featherfall, but mostly magic missile.
Okay.
Sleep.
Now, one of our viewers here has a question. Did Melf and Warduke know one another?
Who?
Warduke, the
oh no
helm character.
No, that's all made up stuff from the.
Well, it actually dovetails pretty well into my next question that I wanted to ask you, which was, there's been a lot that we've gotten up from Wizards of the Coast and various other sources about Melf since you stopped playing, since Wizards of the Coast bought the property. Do you know about a whole lot of it? How do you feel like he's been portrayed?
Yeah, I haven't paid too much of attention. I did it first, and I was like, they got this all wrong. But obviously, that's someone's different portrayal. Hopefully, I'll begin to wrest control of that back, because I don't think there's that much interest in Melf from Wizards of the Coast. So maybe I can wrest that back into my control and help shape that. And the first step might be this neat Idle Champions character.
Right.
They'll depict him, give him the gear that I had, and the backstory, which is what they're asking about. So they want to see my old character sheets. They want to know how I played him as a 5th edition character and what stats he had. And they're going to tailor it that way. So I kind of finally, after all these years, get to take that in a direction closer to where I wanted it to be.
I think you underestimate how much, at least fans on this chat, and how much I would want to see something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's great. No, that's very exciting. I wanted to see it too. And it's like, for me, they're like, oh, we'll give you a couple bucks to talk about it. I was like, I'll do it for free. but thanks for, a little money never hurts.
So more questions that I'm getting out of the crowd right now. Luke, did you have any input at all? This is from our friend Jason Zavoda. Did you have any input into Artifact of Evil when your father was writing it?
Yes, sure. Yeah, we played that. He made that an adventure.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so I played that out, and exactly how he wrote it is pretty much how it went down. I was really pissed. Yeah.
Wow.
I was totally fooled by Keek.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yep.
Now, how about the Knights of Luna? Did that actually? This is another question. This one by Jay Scott out there. Did you have any? Was that just totally made up afterwards, or did you actually have the Knights of Luna?
That I don't. Nope. The Knights of Luna don't sound right.
Okay. Yeah, it's an order of elves that have been created by Melf to.
I think that was a little bit of just to make this backstory a little bit more colorful for him. Yeah.
Got it. Now again,
he wouldn't give me that much power. I wouldn't have access to that sort of stuff as a player.
The questions that the people out in the audience are asking actually continue to dovetail well in the things I want to ask you, because I'm sure that as a veteran game designer, member of the old guard, you've heard a lot of commonly held misconceptions about Greyhawk, about Melf, about Otis. You're in a unique position to authoritatively clear up the fallacies. What do you hear a lot that just isn't right?
Well, I think, is really talking about the worldview and what Greyhawk was meant to be like. I think that's the one that was most surprising to me. Like, Greyhawk is a dark place. It's on the descent into, it's a selfish place. It's best if you are just a mercenary out for your own. I don't think that's the case. I think that is why. I think in the way my dad played it, that was like I said, it's your call to adventure. That's why you are an adventurer, is to write those things and to fix that trajectory. That's the appeal to you as a good player, or as a good person, is to bring that back online. And in fact, you were rewarded. The forces of good were there. You were a pivotal piece that would give them a chance to win. You're, whatever it's, the evil empire, but there's a rebellion, and you got to help the rebellion. Don't be a stormtrooper. Come join the rebellion and help light shine in the world. But yeah, I mean, nothing really jumps to mind. If there's some specifics, I'm happy to answer them. But
Okay.
just that whole idea of, it's a gritty place. No one characters, we just kill your character all the time. That was how it was in the old school. We just kill you left and right. Maybe if you're playing a Jim Ward's game, maybe it was hard, But again, my dad survived in Jim Ward's game. The
Yep.
Vigilists made it to the Starship Warden, and they're still there. They're still alive. So most of those characters live. So if you're
Jim has told me that your father was such an astute, such a detail-oriented gamer.
Yeah. Oh, he was very competitive, and he was a smart guy for sure. Very crafty. But if you did stupid stuff, you'd get killed.
Yeah.
Or if you were not cautious, or if the dice really went against you, stuff happens. And I think that's the way the dice landed. But I think there's times when I can't prove it or whatever, but he probably, fudged a die roll here or there for the sake of the story, but not so much that I could ever tell. I mean, Otis, I was a kid, I was like maybe 10, and my character died in the pit. He didn't let him die. He said, "Oh, Morton came and took him out," but I never played him again, so he was dead. So for adventuring, he was done. And there was other times when certainly if I did something unwise or was in a combat and I failed a saving throw, I had to dice for all of my possessions, and that's why I lost the displacer code, right? But again, why are you adventuring? You have to have motivation to adventure. If you're just superpowered character is loaded down with magic items, there's no challenge to it, right?
Right, of course.
So it's all part of keeping the balance of the game, keeping you struggling, keeping you on your toes, keeping that sense of adventure, that the tension, the dramatic tension. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? Oh, I'm down to 9 hit points. Let's go. This next hit could take me out.
Right.
You had to keep. But there's the resurrect spell too, right? So you could be hauled out, and there's always that chance. There was some outfits.
Thanks for following us, Wu-Tang Piglet. I really appreciate it. I'm getting another one right now. A question for Luke, and this one is from our good friend Mr. Nolan out here, who runs Greyhawk Online. So, who was Melf's or your favorite henchman to accompany Melf and or the group at the time?
So my favorite henchman, I only had one. Again, 9 charisma, so I didn't have a whole lot of henchmen. But there's a good story there. So I was in the, I don't think I had Fireball yet. So I was pretty lower level, 3, 4, 4, something like that. And I was adventuring in the 2nd or 3rd level of Greyhawk, Castle Greyhawk. And I found a room. The room led down. I had to go south down a corridor like 60 feet, and then it turned to the east and went about 30, 40 feet and ended at a door to the north, and that wrapped around the corner of the room. So I opened up the door, and there was a room full of whites, and that's bad juju, right? Undead, super bad. You do not want to get into hand-to-hand combat, right? Now I was by myself. So I closed the door, beat feet out of the dungeon, got like 6 man-at-arms to carry torches and buckets of oil. And we went down in there. I was like, great, this is a 30 by 30 or 40 by 40 room full of whites. I pitch in a bunch of oil, torches, boom, they're burned up. I go in and get the treasure, right? That was my plan of attack. So I go down this hallway, kick open the door, throw all the oil in there, right, and torches, shut the door, spike it, waiting for the flames to come down, right? Well, guess what comes down the dead end, what is now essentially a dead end passage, right? A white. One of the whites had hit a secret door and come out. I hadn't seen that secret door, and he killed one of the man-at-arms, but I killed the white. I didn't lose any levels, thank goodness. I went in there and I found a +2 longsword that was huge. I carried that for a lot of years. All the gold was melted, so like it wasn't worth nearly as much, right? You know, that's typical. Whenever you fireballed stuff or whatever, usually you lowered your treasure haul out there. But I carried the body out and I went back and I said, okay, you know, family, you know, he died. Here's 10 times what I was going to pay him or whatever. And he had, you know, oh, the wife is crying and, you know, he's got children and all stuff. So I was like, oh man, all right. You know, he's like, what am I going to do? How am I going to feel? So I was like, okay, no problem. So I took his body. I went to, found a cleric of 9th level who could throw the, you know, resurrect spell. And I paid all the gold that I had, wiped myself totally out, way more than anything I got. And I got a resurrect spell for this man at arms. And my dad rolled up the character and, you know, rolled up his constitution. I think he had an 11 or something. You know, it wasn't bad. He failed his system shock. So the resurrect didn't work. So I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? And of course, I can't give up. I'm, you know, Melf is, you know, he's not the most charismatic dude, but he is determined and wants to do what is just. He knew his family needed to be taken care of. So he said, all right. So he went out and he said, what can I do? He's like, all right, there's druids can do reincarnation.
Yep.
So he went out in the woods, found a high-level druid, talked to him, performed some service, and in return, he threw a reincarnation on this guy. We diced it up, and he came back as a halfling. And so my dad rolled up the personality out of the DMG for like an NPC. And it turned out he was a kind of a morose, pessimistic halfling, but he was fanatically loyal to me for all that I had done.
Right.
And so he was my faithful henchman Biff, who was a fighter thief.
For those of you who are members of the Patreon, keep that story that he just told in mind about his henchman.
Yeah. So yeah, so Biff was, I think, 4th level, 6th level fighter thief. And he had a long tooth dagger, I think, that we got out of Sajid.
Ooh, nice.
That came out of there. Yeah. Staff of striking and some other stuff. So yeah, he adventured with me all the time, and he was constantly like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work, Master, but we'll do this sort of stuff. So it gave my dad this great way to like be a bummer all the time, kind of like Eeyore, my character. So it was great. He enjoyed that quite a lot. My dad loved puns and kind of pulling your leg and that sort of stuff. So he really enjoyed Biff being around. But Biff was definitely by far my favorite.
The question I asked you, by the way, that led into this whole thing about your henchman, that was from Christoph Nolan. I'm reading my notes here as we go, and all of a sudden I drew a blank exactly who was asking me the question. I know you know him, Luke, from Gary Con, so I just want to give him a shout out there. Sorry I stumbled on your name, man. I'm embarrassed about that. I also got another question about, are your kids playing D&D? And if they are, what are their characters like?
Yes, so my kids play D&D not as often as I would like, simply because of time. And also their age difference. My 12-year-old daughter, Miriam, likes to play D&D, and she'd play more often. But my 9 and 6-year-old are a little less focused on gaming. And it's hard to get all 3 of them together. If someone would want, you know, the attention span of Sabrina's a little lower. But when I do get them together to play, they're up to 3rd level. Miriam has played AD&D, and then we shifted over to 5th edition because I really wanted to learn the system better. And I figured, well, if I can only play so much, I don't have so much time, I may as well play with my daughters. So Miriam's a hack and slasher. So she is, in my tradition, a greedy hack and slasher, just like I was as a kid. So she is a Minotaur paladin named Tyrannos. And Amira is my middle daughter. She's 9, and she's a bit more of a girly girl. And she is an elven sorcerer. And she's a dragon princess. So
nice.
She just wrote that in her character sheet. So she's a dragon princess. So I think I gave her the ability to breathe some kind of, you know, whatever, 1 die or 2 die 6 something. And she has some dragon blood in her. That's how she gets her sorcery. Just for, you know, it's 5th edition, so we'll go with that. I'm sure my dad would be chastising me for being too generous.
Oh,
but
that's
they're
okay.
adorable.
Just as
Yeah.
an anecdote from myself personally, um, Luke a couple years ago brought his daughters over to Gary Con, and I had asked him because I thought to myself, you know what, they might be really bored, might want something to do. Can I run a game for all three of your daughters?
Yeah.
And we decided that they were into at that point was My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So I
That's right.
decided I would run a My Little Pony game for them, and the three of
Yeah.
them were great. They give you an idea about Miriam, about a hack and slash player. They're all deciding what they're good at, all the their basic skill set. I've never seen a martial arts pony before, I don't think, but we had one that day. That was a lot of fun, though, man. Your girls were
Yeah.
awesome. Now, Luke,
Yeah.
as far with we don't have any kind of official support anymore for Greyhawk, the
Yeah.
World of Greyhawk.
No.
So, what would you like? How would you like to see the world develop
Let's
if
go.
when they eventually get around to it, or when somebody else decides to take the reins? What do you want to see?
I have one alibi to that last question in case Sabrina watches this and she gets mad that I didn't mention her character. She plays a bugbear ranger named Serena Elfriend, who was raised her parents were killed by elves, but she was raised as a baby by elves. So she's a good bugbear. So I've got a minotaur, bugbear, and an elf. All right.
That's awesome.
What it's great. It's great. They face a lot of persecution when they go around the world because you have a minotaur and a bugbear walking into town. You're like, holy smokes. But Greyhawk, so Greyhawk, I think, is suffering from a misperception or it being kind of colored with a broad brush. So I don't know, Forgotten Realms in fifth edition, it seems like it's a less deadly, right? There's everybody. They've smoothed some of the rough edges out. Wizards, they're magic users in first edition. You had a dagger, and you might have 4 hit points or 6 hit points if you were rock and roll. If you were amazing,
Right.
but sometimes you had 1 or 2 hit points, right? So any hit could kill you. Then you were kind of weak until you hit that fifth level and you kind of hit that power band and start going up. Fighters are really strong at first, but then they kind of level off and as other people take them over, etc. So they smoothed all that stuff and took some of the rough wonkiness out of it. And I think Greyhawk's been painted with this brush. It's Forgotten Realms is more forgiving or it's more high magic or whatever it is. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think Greyhawk has a wonderful history, interesting politics, so many ways you can go with it. It's the birthplace of so many fantastic characters, so many of the great storylines that are iconic to Dungeons and Dragons. I think that could be brought back. I think there's no reason you can't translate that into fifth edition. And I would even argue that you could maybe make, if you want Greyhawk to be tougher or whatever it is, you could make some Greyhawk optional rules. Hey, instead of 3 death saves at 10 or above, maybe it's you need 15 or above, or maybe there isn't a death save. Maybe it's a different system of death, or whatever the case may be. You could tailor it that way to maybe be a little bit rougher if that's what we were looking for, as opposed to something that's a little lighter. But I think Greyhawk is the center of the D&D world. And I think I think it would be a great thing to bring back. Now, there's some interest in it. There's certainly, here in this audience, obviously there's going to be a lot of interest in it. But I think there could be a wider interest in it as well. And I would very much like to be a part of bringing that back officially as an official setting and getting back in front of a wide range of gamers. I think it's cool. It's what I grew up on. And I think it would be well received. It's just got to get in people's hands.
You heard it here, Wizards folks. Make it so. Luke Gygax has spoken. As far
I have spoken.
yes, he has spoken. Lots of people over here that are big supporters of Gary Con at the show tonight. I've got Brian Blumklotz, who runs the Facebook group for Greyhawk, one of the many Facebook groups, probably the most
Yes.
popular. I've got Christoph Nolan, as I mentioned before, who was the
Yeah.
mastermind behind putting together the Earth Journal that we gave out at the
Oh, great.
Greyhawk
Yes,
seminar.
absolutely.
I've got my good friend over here, Dave Ryak, who's a huge enthusiast over on the West Coast. I've got obviously Lord Gasumba, Jay Scott over there on
Yep.
the right coast. As you mentioned, there's so much interest right here. I mean, we've got people tuning in right now from all over the country and really all over the world to hear you
Yeah.
speak and to hear us talk about Greyhawk. I mean, it's out there, it's vibrant, and it definitely could get wings again.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I think it would be easy. It would be easy to do because so many people are playing.
yeah,
And Forgotten Realms, I mean, honestly, I don't know that much about Forgotten Realms. I don't have anything bad to say about it. It never captured my interest that much. But I'm sure it's fantastic and it's wonderful. But Greyhawk is home
right.
for me. I'd like to see Greyhawk around. I think it could be good. If we're gonna do an Eberron or whatever, why not have Greyhawk there? And I think it can be made different and distinct from Forgotten Realms, and maybe you tailor it just to be a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit more. I hate to use the word adult or mature or anything like that, but maybe it's a little bit rough or grim. If you want to flavor it there, a little bit, it has a little bit more of a rough edge to it.
Right.
You could certainly do that if you want to, or make it a little bit more, a little bit more deadly in the encounters and things of that nature. Not take the training wheels off if you're in Greyhawk. I think that would appeal to the older school
Right.
mindset a little bit more. So I think you could take it there. And I have some interesting ideas on how to make Greyhawk important and central to the world of D&D as well. And hopefully we'll get a chance to look at that and get a chance to pitch it to the Wizards guys.
That would be so amazing because, we're all sitting here just waiting. Most of us, whether it be for going into publication through DM Guild or just having official support for it again, everybody
Yeah.
is out there just with their fingers on the button, just waiting to go. And
Yeah.
having having the blessing to do that from Wizards would make a lot of people happy. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it would be good to see it as an official because we can do Dunfalcon or whatever it is, right? And we all know what it's about. But wouldn't it be neat to see Greyhawk back again under the company that under the official D&D flag? That'd be cool.
As much editing as I have to do on my products to make them not Greyhawk, not explicitly Greyhawk and
Yeah.
violate IP, I would want nothing more than that. Believe me.
Yeah, I hear you. It's hard.
So, is there? We're almost here at it's 8:57 right now, Luke. I promised I'd have you for an hour and let you go. Is there anything else you want to say to the audience? Anything you'd like to clear up or talk about before we go?
I just think I want to say thank you to everybody because I have, I didn't really appreciate the legacy that I had as my one of my father's children, but the love and support and just I just the way people are willing to be so kind and embrace things that I've done, whether it's Gary Con or Gaxmore or whatever it may be. There's such an outpouring of love and support that it's really humbling. And so thank you guys thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for giving me a chance to do stuff and to carry on my dad's legacy. It's really important to me and my family, and being able to run Gary Con and have such wonderful support. Even when things don't go perfectly, people are very forgiving and generous and caring, and it means a lot to us. So thank you for being great people.
Thank you so much, Luke. It's been my pleasure, my distinct honor to have you on the show. I don't hold back the esteem in which I hold you in, or the way that you conduct yourself as your father's child. You're the real deal, man, and I'll always support you no matter what. I do have one last question that just got in under the radar, though. It'll only take a couple seconds. What do you remember about the apparatus of Qualish?
The apparatus of Qualish, man. I wish I had a good story to end on, but I don't. I used the apparatus of Qualish when I was gaming in my my 48th birthday party. I had a 12-hour D&D session that a good friend of mine ran for me, and we stayed up. It was Joe was there. Joe Manganello was there, along with a couple good friends. My friend Glenn Grayson Beast. The Beast was there, and a few other great dudes. And we played 12 hours in the apparatus of Qualish. Yeah, I know. We played till 4 a.m. in the morning as 40-something-year-olds, right? We played 12 hours straight with 3 different full sand table setups, all sorts of props. I mean, it was insane, dude. It was amazing. It was amazing. That's it was mind blowing.
How is that not a great story to end on?
It was great. And yeah, the apparatus of Qualish came up, and we had to defeat an aboleth, and then we used the apparatus of Qualish to escape from the Abelis hideout. So that was that's the best apparatus and quality story I got. I'm sorry.
That's a good one, man. I'm really happy that you shared that with us.
Yeah.
Everyone out there in Twitch, thanks so much for watching the show with Luke tonight, and I've got a pretty cool guest I think for us lined up next month. I don't think that it's going to be able to top the main man here, but we're going to try. For all you that tuned in, thanks so much. We're going to go ahead and we'll sign off for the evening. Luke, if you'll stick around just for a second so I can say goodbye. I want to tell everybody else, though, before we go, happy holidays, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in and helping me do the things I love. And for those of you who support us on Patreon, it's what makes the Castle Entertainment go. So thank you so much for the help there. And I hope to see a lot of you guys at GaryCon. Luke, like I said, we're going to sign off now. And everybody, you guys have a great night and happy holidays, all of you.
Happy New Year's.